I like you a lot. Do you want to try to be together? When I saw this sentence, I had just got off work and was stunned for a moment. Okay. I added 2 cute emojis and sent it. I seem to have gotten used to the feeling of starting a new relationship. When I told my friends, the past few relationships were all reluctantly agreed to. They all didn't understand. But I want to say that reluctantly agreed relationships actually have another meaning. I didn't expect that someone like me would like someone. Thank you for liking me. I've heard before that there is a type of person who has a fun personality when it comes to love. As long as you dare to invest, you will most likely get a return. If this statement is true, I'm probably a fund. For a long time I didn't believe that I was loved. So when the senior from the club confessed to me in my freshman year, I was completely stunned. How could it be? Are you sure you like me? This was my first love. When acquaintances in school sent me their blessings, I felt that I had finally been affirmed. But I didn't know what kind of person the senior was. I just wanted to enjoy this relationship and the feeling of being loved. I didn't even know a love that starts blindly will backfire. In my sophomore year, I took over as the president of the guitar club. Every day I was busy organizing performances and rehearsals for club members. But that senior was addicted to games and spent all day in the internet cafe. I suggested that he learn something to enrich himself, but to him, it sounded like a sermon from a junior. He didn't want to listen at all and paid less and less attention to me. One time I couldn't help it and went to the internet cafe to find him. At that time he was playing games side by side with other seniors. I stood behind him for 20 minutes before he stood up listlessly and walked out of the internet cafe with me. At the end of this communication he said, "I find you annoying and don't want to be together anymore." At that moment I was sad and embarrassed and buried my head very low. Walking back to the dormitory alone in the rain, I suspected that no one would like me anymore. After a long time I still blamed myself for this. Maybe it was my problem that made him unable to play games properly. After becoming the president of the school guitar club, some boys also sent me ambiguous signals, and I would always be easily shaken. Although I didn't like him very much, he was so good to me. I should respond to him, right? At that time I didn't quite understand what it meant to be moved. I didn't quite understand what it meant to start a relationship. I just simply thought that it was rare for someone to be sincere to me. Later in my college life, I became good at more and more things besides guitar. I also started to perform on various stages. I even became a little famous in school. But this didn't change my self-esteem. I still couldn't believe that I was worthy of being loved. In the several relationships that followed, he was a special one. He was a teacher at a high school art training institution. I had just graduated and started working. One day, he said on WeChat that he felt that the house I was renting was too small and he could move in and live with him. I was flattered and happily agreed. Please help me take it out for a walk. Thank you for your hard work. When I saw him downstairs, he smiled and handed me the golden retriever he had raised for many years. An hour later, when I led the golden retriever back to his house, he stood smiling among the flowers and soft candlelight and said to me with a surprised face, "Live with me in the future." He was a few years older than me, but he always expressed his love to me appropriately. For example, his home is 30 minutes away from my workplace by car. One day after get off work, he said he wanted to see me, so he drove over to pick me up. The moment he saw me, he excitedly said, "I wanted to see you so much. It only took me 17 minutes to drive today." For example, one year, I participated in the company's New Year's Eve event. I had to work until 1 a.m. on New Year's Eve. So I told him to wait for me at home and say Happy New Year to him later. But at 1 a.m., I packed up all my things at the event venue. Just when I got up, he suddenly called me and told me to look back. He was wearing a scarf and waving at me in the cold wind. It turned out that from the start of the event until the early morning, he had been sitting in the underground parking lot here, waiting for me to get off work. This can also be considered as spending New Year's Eve with you. How do I describe my feelings at that time? I think there won't be anyone better than him. During this relationship, driving has always been my obsession. When I bought my first car, I told him immediately that he could sit comfortably on my passenger seat when he felt tired. It was the same conversation in the car. This time we suddenly became polite. "Where do you want to go?" "No, just sit here." After a long silence, I asked him in a hoarse voice if he wanted to break up. He said yes, he didn't feel anything anymore. I don't understand why people can change so quickly. Even though I kept sending him messages to try to win him back, he just disappeared from my life without even looking back. Later, I learned from a mutual friend that before he got together with me, he had been in a relationship for more than 4 years. He loved his ex very much, but like me, he could not redeem the feelings that had already disappeared. The romantic things that happened between us were just his desperate attempt to wash away the influence of his ex on him. I was both sad and a little amused. It turned out that we were the same. We reluctantly started a relationship just to compensate for the injuries we had suffered. And such a relationship that covers scars with scars often does not bring any good results. After a 10-year period of low self-esteem, I found more and more clearly that when I was in a relationship intensively, it was when I tried to do a lot of things. The more people around me paid attention to me, the more I wanted to do these things well and make myself worthy of their love. But at this moment, I want to say that even if I still don't believe in being loved, I still like myself very much. Because whether it is the boy who is immersed in the game or the boy who puts his feelings for his ex on me, they are not lovers who really support me to be myself. Only after going through these, I, who was love-brained, understood that even if you were in love, it would not solve all kinds of problems in life. What kind of lover do I really need? I remembered that before the epidemic, my current boyfriend and I went to Japan for a trip. There was a beautiful market and a spectacular Ferris wheel. I asked him to take a photo of me, but he posed for more than 10 minutes and the photo was still ugly. I lost my temper on the street. Whatever. Let's just leave it like that. After walking back and forth for more than 10 minutes, I returned to his side. He was still angry. He took out his mobile phone innocently and showed me the back view he had just taken of me from behind. Various angles, various lights, bedtime stories. Is it okay this time? He scratched his head and asked me distressedly. I couldn't help laughing. Although the photo was still ugly, this time I felt a completely different kind of love from before. It was a kind of love that was mutually considerate and supportive, and it was also a love that allowed each other to feel at ease to be themselves.